So the Neave Trio has been on our station many times in the past, both in performance as well as talking about those performances. And I'm happy to welcome one of them right now for a little classical conversation. That is the cellist Mikhail Veselov. Welcome, Mikhail.
Hello, it's such a pleasure to talk with you again.
Yeah, I think the last time you gave me permission to call you Misha. Does that still hold?
Absolutely, anytime. Misha is great.
It's much easier, I think, than Mikhail. But,
I agree.
Yeah. So the Neave Trio, you plus violinist Anna Williams, pianist Eri Nakamura, you've done a lot of really interesting albums. We played all this music on our radio station. You did the South American Piazzolla Salute. You did a French album, an American album, an all-female composers album. And this one has a really interesting theme that ties it together. The new album is called Musical Remembrances. Three different trios here, Rachmaninoff, Brahms, and Ravel. Tell us a little bit about what precipitated this album and what the theme means. What ties these trios together?
Well, so we got to actually spend time over the last couple of years with these three pieces. We were supposed to originally record it earlier, and then as the rest of the world, everything got shut down and, had to postpone. And we got to spend this couple of years really reflecting on those pieces. And, as you mentioned before, we recorded quite a few lesser known, lesser performed pieces. These three happen to be one of sort of the most played, the most loved in the trio repertoire, fairly so. I mean, they really are wonderful pieces. But spending this 2 years and sort of going through everything that the world went through and reflecting on some values and, sort of the fleeting sense of life and what it means. These pieces we felt like we were able to connect a little bit more to composers as people, and each composer in this case has a bit of a sense of reflection on their legacy. As we found, for example, Rachmaninoff, he wrote it very, very young. And he was kind of stepping into the shoes of Tchaikovsky, who still was around, but, Rachmaninoff was sort of up-and-coming star of the composition world at the time. Ravel wrote this piece, this trio, which is absolutely unbelievable. He wrote it in about 5 weeks, and he was about to go off to serve in World War I. So one can imagine what could have gone through his mind. It could have been very possibly it could have been the last piece that he ever wrote. And then with Brahms, it's both young and mature piece. He wrote it, it's very early opus, as you can see, is opus 8, but he came back to it 35-something years later and really changed it. It really, both versions exist and been published. The second version that we have recorded is much more often played, but ability to look at his young work and see how much he matured as a composer, as a person, how he edited his young work. I think it sort of gives us a window into his sense of legacy, and I think it's interesting that he left both versions in existence, knowing how much he actually burned his music. So all those three things, I think, all those three pieces that sort of gave us that sense of who they might have been as people and what it meant to them, the sense of legacy.
Well, they're all wonderful trios in their own way, and it's really interesting to hear the Rachmaninoff Elegiac Trio No. 1. You mentioned Tchaikovsky, and Tchaikovsky was still alive, but when he wrote his second Elegiac Trio, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky had died, and he dedicated it to him. But sort of the ghost of Tchaikovsky hanging over all of that music. He was just 18 years old when he wrote it, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And there's some, it's conjuncture, it's not for sure, but if you actually play the theme of Rachmaninoff's trio backwards, it's sort of reflective of Tchaikovsky's trio's theme, and then, he ends the piece, it's one movement piece, but it ends with sort of a funeral march, a dirge, which is also very much similar to Tchaikovsky's first movement of his trio. So there's some parallels and similarities, and you could see how much Rachmaninoff, idolized Tchaikovsky in some sense.
Yeah, and this came at an interesting time for Rachmaninoff, before he went into his depression and then came back from that. Great stories that we often hear about Rachmaninoff, but this trio is not something that we dive into. As I remember, in my past conversations with the Neave Trio, you, Misha, are sort of the musicologist of the group. You know.
Oh, I don't know about that. I wouldn't take that responsibility.
Well, I did want to ask you. I mean, this first elegiac trio by Rachmaninoff is not really clearly dedicated to anybody. I mean, we talked about Tchaikovsky a little bit, but what's your theory as to why Rachmaninoff wrote this piece?
Well, I think the again, I think it's really admiring the Tchaikovsky's input. I do think that he took the first movement of Tchaikovsky's trio as a model, and I do think that Tchaikovsky's trio first movement could actually stand on its own, just like Rachmaninoff's trio does too. Without the other movements too, it could be performed. It's such a rich and dramatic piece, and Rachmaninoff's trio as well is this one movement, but it has so much in it. It really is a journey in a sense, not to overuse that word, but so I think there's definitely the aspiration of inspiration rather from Tchaikovsky's trio here. I think really that's what he was trying to do, but at the same time, it's really Rachmaninoff. The harmonies, these long, lush melodies that are really extended. Tchaikovsky is very motivic. There are a lot of small motifs that come back and reused. Rachmaninoff he has this endless, 16-bar melodies that just develop and develop. So there are a lot of similarities, but there's really Rachmaninoff's voice really comes through here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear like a full orchestra, it seems like, with your performance of that trio. I want to dig into these other two composers. Let's talk about Johannes Brahms and this trio. You mentioned it was in two different versions. I guess he wrote one version when he was very young, and then he had the input of Clara Schumann and sort of revised it later on. Can you talk about that trio there of Johannes Brahms and Robert and Clara Schumann?
Yeah, so again, it's sort of a conjunction, a rumor, or a sort of idea, but it's such a romantic piece, as all Brahms obviously is, but it's very tender. It has the really reflective, beautiful third movement, and one could argue that he was inspired by his feelings for Clara Schumann, and they were never went anywhere. The Schumann, Robert Schumann and Brahms were colleagues and friends, and Clara Schumann was brilliant pianist, and people, wrote music for her. She was a brilliant composer herself as well. So Brahms clearly admired her and perhaps had some kind of romantic feelings for her that never went anywhere. And Brahms was always a bachelor. He never married, never had kids. So, that's sort of one question is that maybe he came back to it later in life, to this trio as reflection of his professional life and output, but also his personal life, and sort of reflecting on this young love that he never lost but never went anywhere.
Yeah. You mentioned that these composers were pianists. You mentioned Rachmaninoff, but also Ravel and Brahms, were no slouch at the piano. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how they approach the genre of the piano trio, and how they differ from each other.
That's a great question. I think it's a good point that you made, is that they all were pianists, and Rachmaninoff was obviously, like, his piano concertos are notorious for how impossible they are. And Ravel trio, I would say, if Ari would have been here in this interview, she would tell you that it's objectively one of the hardest works for the piano in the piano trio repertoire. And I think you could also hear, though, how they each have their own view on the piano role in piano trio. And I mean, obviously it's such an orchestral arrangement of instruments, and I think Ravel especially really takes it to such next level. I mean, if you ever get your hands on the score, piano has sometimes 3 lines, not just 2, because he just couldn't fit everything into two. Usually piano score has 2 lines and then violoncello line, but literally it's like you need 3 hands to play that part. It's just unbelievable. So it really sounds like an orchestra, and it's unbelievable what Ravel especially was able to pull out of it. And Brahms obviously has his unique, very thick, kind of rich piano writing. So it's just each composer really brings their own version of piano trio, which is such a great joy for us as a piano trio to explore.
Yeah. You mentioned that you had lived with these pieces during the pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about the experience of trying to keep it together as performing artists during the COVID-19 era?
Yeah, I think it's, as the rest of the world again, as I said, we had to shut everything down. We had our last tour was in California in March, like right as things were kind of getting on the verge of getting shut down, and we came back, and the next day, everything was closed. And we were very lucky that we have so many wonderful friends and a great team working with us. So we were able actually to friends of ours shared their living room with us. They were elsewhere in during the year, and we just were able to keep us apart and rehearse there and keep working, which was really wonderful. And we taught online, and we recorded a lot of concerts and did live streams like many people. And of course, all of that is none of it can replace the real life audience, which we're so excited to come back to now and get to actually connect with people in person. Nothing can replace that, but we were very lucky to keep doing things and keep rehearsing and playing, because of course that's for us was sort of the most important to not lose that.
And you're also involved with various projects and teaching as well. Yeah, you were teaching through the pandemic?
We were, yeah. Again, we're very lucky to be able to do that. And so we were teaching online, and we have a lot of students who from other countries and time zones and things like that. We're all part of the problem and, solution as well. So there's a lot of creativity from wonderful students and organizations, and it's just really how many industries, really, people came together and figure out solutions to keep things going. It's really admirable. So we're very lucky to be as part of that industry too. Musicians, there's so many creative solutions that people came up with. So we're very grateful and very lucky.
Yeah, and it comes to mind that all three of you are not wind players, so you don't have to use your mouth. You can wear a mask if you need to.
That is true. That is true. That's another thing. Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like there would be an explosion of repertoire for the piano trio and some, organizations like that. Yeah,
that's a good point. We should bring that up more often. That's true.
Yeah, music with a mask. I'm looking at the album cover. The physical CD came out in May, and it's very kind of ethereal. It's kind of gothic in a way, and I'm wondering where you got those pictures from. Where were they?
Well, it's an incredible photographer, Lisa Marie Mazzucco. She's just she's an absolutely incredible photographer in world classical music. So a lot of CDs or musicians you see out there, they actually get to work with her, and we were lucky to do that. It's actually in her home in Connecticut.
Really?
And she just her eye and her creativity is just absolutely above and beyond. So we can't wait to do it again, and she's so much joy to work with as well. So yeah, we're very very proud of the cover. She's done incredible work.
I'm always interested in the artwork and how it reflects what's on the disc. I also love the fact that you have the page turner credited in your in your notes here.
He's been with us, every time we record for Chandos. He's there, and he's the quiet, presence and supportive. He's absolutely wonderful. And Chandos is such a great family. They really are the special group. So we absolutely love our producer and our page turner. It's really such a close-knit, family. When we're there, we spend 3 days recording, and those are the people you see, every minute of every day. So it's really special. So yeah, Chandos should really credit everybody. Page turner and page. I think piano tuner should be there too.
I think the technician and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must be, well, I'm sure Ari is up to the task, but you don't take a piano on the road with you, right?
No, we just have to deal with whatever is there. And in case of Chandos, they have absolutely incredible Stanway, and Ari, when we come back to the studio, she hugs the piano. It's one of her favorites. So, and of course, a wonderful piano tuner there. Ari actually did, I think, I hope she's not mad at me, I'll give away a secret. She actually did break a string at the end of Ravel, because it's such a huge piano part. So tuner had to replace it, because it wasn't functional for a little bit.
That's a great story. I'm wondering if you, as a cellist, have had any horror stories with airplanes. It seems like the cello, for some reason, always attracts that kind of unwanted attention.
Yeah, no, I've been very, knock on wood, very lucky. It is always a stress for both me and Anna as well. With the violin, the rules are in place, but you never know who's going to board the plane. And of course, for good reasons, the flight attendant is always right, and it's their territory. So we've have had moments, but we're lucky. So we haven't had any news stories related to travel yet. Hopefully, never.
Maybe give us a little 101 on the Neave Trio. I mean, we've talked about some of this before. You've been together for, 12 years now, I think, as a trio. But you're starting to emerge from the pandemic. I see, different concerts that you're doing upcoming. Maybe we can focus a little bit on the future of the Neave Trio. What do you have in mind for the coming year?
Oh, we have a lot of exciting things. We actually... going off to Katzbahn Festival in a couple of weeks. It's upstate New York, and we're working with an incredible group of dancers. Haley Weingarten is the choreographer. She's a very young, very talented dancer from Juilliard, and she received an award to choreograph this work. So we love collaborating with other art forms. So that's our first thing that we're doing, and then we're going to Mostly Modern Festival, also upstate New York. Happen to be working with young composers.
And that's Joanne Falletta, right? Joanne Falletta.
Yeah. We conducted the orchestra. We this time we're going to be playing just the chamber works, but I'll hope to collaborate with her in the future as well with the triple concerto that is in the works. And then we're going back to UK in July to record our next album. And we're working with wonderful composer Bob Sirota and choreographer Gabriel Lamb on this project called Rising. That sort of came out of this last 2 years of experience and sense of rising above and rising for something and rising against something, and just what it means emotionally and physically, and sort of exploration on that. So that's some of the next few projects we're doing. We're also working with this wonderful artist Sharon Harper, who is doing a visual sort of media art to do with the Verbal Trio. It's called Gathering Light. So have a lot of very exciting projects and great concerts and programs. So we're really excited for the next few months and couple of years as well.
That's great. Well, we look forward to that new album that's in the works. But the current album we're talking about is called Musical Remembrances, piano trios by Sergei Rachmaninoff, Johannes Brahms, and Maurice Ravel. Available now either digitally or as well as physically, a CD, imagine that, from Shandos Records. Mikhail, before I let you go, let's just go over your social media if folks want to do some more exploring.
Yeah, so you can find us on all the social media, I think besides TikTok. I don't think we'll have TikTok yet. Hopefully, we can't figure that one out. But we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, on Instagram. You can write us through our website if you have any questions or want to connect. So please be in touch. And if you have any questions, always happy to connect and talk.
Well, if anybody wants to Google the Neave Trio, we should mention it's spelled Neave, Neave Trio. And you have a website at neavetrio.com as well. Mikhail Veselov, cellist for the Neave Trio, along with violinist Anna Williams and pianist Eri Nakamura. Misha, thank you so much for spending some time today telling us about this wonderful new album here on FM 91.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.